Grand Central.
Sir, 5, please.
Clear up the closing doors, please.
According to Webster's dictionary, the commute is the summation of time spent and the combination of transportation systems used by a professional en route to and from his place of work and return back home. Though it is barely referred to by economic theory, the commute was an indispensable requirement for the evolution of productionism, and it currently remains as an absolute guarantor of its stability. Productionism is the only economic model admissible in the modern world. Its grounding principle is that the meaning of human existence lies on the perpetual repetition of the following dynamic. A, generate product. B, rest to keep generating. That human existence should flow between producing and rest to keep producing, producing and rest to keep producing, producing and rest to keep producing, producing. Consequently, all other human activities should be evaluated and controlled in order to serve this goal. Producing. However, humans tend by nature to diversity, to dedicate their time to vital activities other than producing and resting to keep producing. Activities such as having fun, conversations, thinking. The evolution of productionism demanded a strict rationing of these activities. This wasn't an easy task. Opposers to productionism rose up to condemn this economic model that threatened to suppress the human condition. So the realization of productionism would have to be achieved with utmost discretion. Enormous amounts of money were poured into the task. However, time quickly passed and no solution to fully realize productionism was found. Yes, humans were producing and resting to keep producing, but they also had fun, conversations. They even had thoughts. So the best minds set to work. As legend among economic theorists has it, the most influential economists of the modern world were secretly locked captive at the top of the highest building on the planet until they would come up with a solution to the complete realization of productionism. It was up there, way above the common man, contemplating the immense landscape that such a solution was found. Workers would be relocated outside of the city and thus forced to spend time daily in transport between work and home. This solution was named the commute. A new professional kind of human was born, the commuter. The strict rationing of all non-essential human activities would begin. Productionism was born. The first human activity to be restricted by the commute was having fun. Though having fun can take many different forms, statistically it assumes a social activity in which the human submits him or herself to two influences, the night and the alcohol. These two influences have a directly proportional relationship, meaning the longer the night, the more alcohol consumed. The more alcohol consumed, the greater the fun. However, the levels of fun and producing have an inversely proportional relationship, meaning the more fun the human has, the less he rests. The less the human rests, the less he/she produces. This state of minimized productivity, called hangover, constituted a clear obstacle in the evolution of productionism. It was imperative to minimize the fun. An intense media campaign was started to convince the human that he suffered from an overdose of activity, responsibility, and stimuli. This overdose was named stress and was to be cured with extended exposure to peace and quiet. For this purpose, new living spaces were built away from the city. Spaces full of peace and quiet. Or full of nothing, according to opposers to productionism who demanded other ways to deal with stress. Those living spaces, named suburbs, were key in the realization of productionism. The classical concept of metropolis was redefined and spliced into two polar spaces. The cities would be for producing, and the suburbs would be for resting to keep producing. These polar spaces were to be connected by the commute. Thanks to the commute, city center began to empty at the end of the working day, keeping the commuter away from the dangerous formula, socialize plus night plus alcohol. The hangover was eliminated. The fun was minimized. As fun was minimized, the commute also spoke to the conversation. Having a conversation is an activity in which two or more humans exchange opinions about a specific subject. An opinion could be critical of productionism, so it's not hard to understand its potential danger. However, it was observed that not every conversation reveals critical opinions. Actually, very few conversations do so. A deep level of knowledge among interlocutors is necessary in order for a critical opinion to be expressed in conversation. When interlocutors barely know each other, their conversations are mainly about the weather. This is why human beings try to avoid conversation with strangers. So the realization of productionism did not demand the total eradication of conversations. It only needed that certain conditions be set for humans to avoid them. Those conditions were created by the commute. Commuters began to spend a great deal of their time in the car or the train, i.e., alone or among strangers. And because it is extremely difficult to see the same face twice in the commute, and because conversations among strangers are mainly about the weather, commuters ended up avoiding conversations. As fun was minimized and conversations were avoided, so too was the thinking eliminated. Thinking is an individual, mental, and generally quiet activity in which a human ponders a given situation. Given the strictly interior nature of thinking, it is an activity way more difficult to detect than having fun or conversations. For example, one can affirm with almost no margin of error that commuters typically don't have fun nor have conversations on their commutes. But it is almost impossible to determine whether in their silence and stillness they are thinking, or on the contrary, they are zoning out in a state of zero mental activity, the ideal condition for the realization of productionism. The risk of the commuter thinking was too great, as it might have resulted in disturbing conclusions about the commuter and the commute. But ironically, the solution was in the commute itself. It was observed that the length of the commute had a direct relationship with the possibility for the commuter to think. The longer and slower a commute was, the lesser chance there was that the commuter might think. Thus, it was decided that the commute should flow exasperatingly slow. This dynamic of extremely decreased fluidity was named jam and was made possible by a wide array of measures: rationing and delay of trains, permanent works of construction, faulty traffic light systems, human controllers ensuring traffic jams, etc., etc. Exasperated by the overcrowding and waiting, commuters began to increasingly disconnect from themselves and others. This disconnection was fueled by squeezing into the commute centuries-old human activities that originally had their own time and space, such as reading and listening to music. However, in most cases, the disconnection became literal. Some commuters even started falling asleep on their commute. Things became a blur. Thinking was eliminated. It was the splendor of productionism. It is hard to believe that economic theory omits any reference to the commute when explaining the evolution of productionism. Opposers of productionism believe that such omission is by no means accidental. Everything was once secretly plotted at the top of the highest building of the modern world. This is no legend, but true conspiracy they defend. Beyond controversy, the truth is that because of the commute, productionism was established as the only admissible economic model in the modern world. And to this day, the model of the commute works like clockwork. The commuter A produces, B rests to keep producing, produces, and rests to keep producing, produces, and rests to keep producing, produces. There are, however, commuters who dream while resting. These commuters are called dreamers. Among those dreamers on the commute, some dream with images from when they used to have fun, have conversations, think. That is why dreams are a last threat for productionism, and the control of dreams has become its most important challenge. Unlike the other vital activities regulated by the commute, the way of dealing with dreams is not minimizing, avoiding, or eliminating them. Commuters are not. Dreamers will always dream. That is why the solution in this case lies in the creation of new dreams. Dreams to silence opposers of productionism. Dreams to infuse the commuter with hopes and reaffirm his way of life. Dreams to be dreamt on the commute. The most relevant one among these new dreams is called the American Dream, and will be the subject of the next chapter in the Key Concepts of the Modern World series.